to church up. Welcome to church on purpose. Welcome to church on purpose. And sing. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. This resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. So days the road we trod with the testing ground. Till in the days that hope unborn had died, we let the glory the clearing feet, our face on the other side. We have come over a way that the winters had gone. We have come treading the path that the prophets Power from glory past, till now we stand at last. We're the white gleam of our star crown is cast. God of a weary the weary ears, God of a silent tears, those who have brought us thus far on the way. Thou hast guided thy mind into the light. Keep us forever worship, Lord, I'm free. Lord, I'm free. Free to dance and sing, free to lift my hands and worship, Lord, I'm free. Lord, I'm free. Free to dance and sing, free to lift my hands and worship, Lord, I'm free. Lord, I'm free. Free to dance and sing, free to lift my hands and worship, Lord, I'm free. Lord, I'm free. I'm a free worshiper. I'm a free worshiper. I'm a free worshiper. Lord, I'm free. I'm a free worshiper. I'm a free worshiper. I'm a free worshiper. Lord, I'm free. Free to dance and sing, free to lift my hands and worship. Lord, I'm free. Lord, I'm free. Free to dance and sing, free to lift my hands and worship. Lord, I'm free. Lord, I'm free. I'm a free worshiper. I'm a free worshiper. I'm a free worshiper. Lord, I'm free. I'm a free worshiper. I'm a free worshiper. I'm a free worshiper. Lord, I'm free. Thank God I'm free, and I'll never be bound again. Thank God I'm free, and I'll never be bound again. Thank God I'm free, and I'll never be bound again.
Purpose. We are so glad and so grateful that you are joining us today. Excited that you are taking time out on this extremely chilly Sunday morning to be with us for worship. We hope that you are warm and toasty in your homes, and we are so grateful that you are joining us. As a matter of fact, if this is your first time worshiping with us, we want to extend a very special welcome to you. We are so excited that you are here, and we just pray that you will take in just a second to go ahead and just drop us a line there in the chat so that we can recognize you and so that we can give you some special love. Of course, this is the opportunity, the designated moment during our services where y'all should be blowing the chat up with greetings for this morning. I see y'all trying to get a jump on it during service, and that's cool. That's cool. But that means you got to come back and do it again during our designated worship time. So y'all should be blowing up that chat right now, just with greetings this morning for one another. We have a few reminders and announcements for you, so please stay glued to your screen for these announcements.
Happy Black History Month, Church on Purpose. Here are your announcements and reminders for February 2021. We're so happy that each of you chose to worship with us. If this is your first time worshiping with us, text the word WELCOME to 531-233-5190 to receive a special thank you for joining us today. Mark your calendar for these upcoming events. Our theme at Church on Purpose for 2021 is Who Are You? Learning to see ourselves the way He sees us. Make sure you tune in each Sunday at 9:45 a.m. and Wednesday at 6:25 p.m. right here at live.churchonpurpose.org or by mobile device via the Church Center app. Speaking of the Church Center app, there's no better time to get connected. Visit the Apple Store or Google Play Store to download the Church Center app to your mobile device. Search for Church on Purpose and get linked to all of the basics needed to stay engaged. Need assistance? We can help. Email us at office.churchonpurpose.org. It's Black History Month. What an exciting time to more intentionally highlight and recognize the contributions of Black Americans. Keep your eyes peeled for all of the various ways we'll be celebrating Black History Month at Church on Purpose. Let's take a virtual tour through the history of Black Americans in the Midwest at the Great Plains Black History Museum. Join us for a 1-hour tour on Thursday, February 18th or Saturday, February 27th to learn more about the obstacles, accomplishments, and perseverance of those that came before us. Register today on the Church Center app or visit our website and click Events for more information. Here are a few final reminders. Each month at Church on Purpose, we pick one North Omaha nonprofit and one North Omaha business to highlight and support. Here are our selected highlights for this month.
Hello and good morning. Welcome to the Great Plains Black History Museum. My name is Eric Ewing. I'm the executive director here at the museum. And I want to first of all thank Church on Purpose for supporting us during the month of February as its nonprofit of the month. If you're interested in visiting the museum, you can schedule an appointment at gpblackhistorymuseum.org. If you're interested in making a donation to the museum, which we greatly appreciate, you can do that at our website as well. You can also follow us on Facebook at Great Plains Black History Museum. And also, if you have any additional questions, you can reach out to us at info, G as in great, P as in plains, B as in black, H as in history, and M as in museum at gmail.com. You can also reach us by calling us at area code 402, numbers 932-7077. And once again, we'd like to thank the Church on Purpose for supporting us, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you and have a great day.
Hello, my name is Quentin Rogers. I am owner of the Mobile Gearhead. I'm a mobile mechanic. As you can see, I got all of my tools and all my gear there in the back. I'm actually headed to a job right now to work on a customer's vehicle. But again, my name is Quentin Rogers. I'm a mobile mechanic. I perform maintenance, service, and repair on your vehicle, and I do so wherever your vehicle is located, whether that's at your home, at your job, or even on the side of the road if you're stranded. I can do diagnostic work on a no-start condition, diagnostic work on pretty much any condition on your vehicle, and let you know what the issue may be. And then, of course, I can perform the job for you as well. So brake work, suspension work, tune-up, oil changes, suspension work, you need a radiator replaced, all of these things I can do. Aside from any major engine, transmission, or body work, I do not do that. The reason I do what I do is because I had friends who would give me all kinds of horror stories and stories about how they got ripped off going to the dealership or the shops, and I began to really just offer this service at the insistence of a friend. He said, man, you should really, help folk out. You have a really good skill that people could benefit from. And so I decided to do that. And it's been a wonderful journey, really helping people to get their vehicles back on the road. And it also serves as an opportunity to do ministry here in the city as well. So if you want to get in touch with me to possibly have your vehicle diagnosed or to have work done on it, the best way to get in contact with me is to either call or text at 402-957-1662. Again, that's 402-957-1662. Again, my name is Quentin Rogers, the Mobile Gearhead. Contact me if you need any work. I appreciate the highlight for the month, and you all have a great day.
Are you 12 years old or younger? Then here's a special invitation for you.
We have exciting news about Kingdom Kids. Layla, take it over.
Every first and third Sundays, we have something just for kids. K through 8th grade will meet on Zoom at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will do interactive activities that we can use in our everyday life. Join us for Kingdom Kids.
5 and under have their own Zoom class at 12:45 p.m. where they will learn and grow with stories about Jesus. Join us. See you there.
We're so blessed with an amazing church family. We have to take the time to say happy birthday or happy anniversary to the following Church on Purpose family members. Supporting the work of the kingdom through Church on Purpose is easier than ever. Give online at our website, give on the go through our mobile app, use your existing PayPal or Cash App services, or text any dollar amount to 84321. We couldn't do what we do without your consistent support. Have you supported your church this week? Don't forget, at the conclusion to today's lesson, we'll gather in small groups in the room and online for a period of reflection to answer the 2 questions. What stuck out to me the most from the lesson, and what am I going to do differently this week based on what I learned? To participate virtually, click the reflection link in your Church Center app or go to sun.churchonpurpose.org at the conclusion of this message. That's all of your announcements and reminders for this month at Church on Purpose. Be sure to catch us each week at live.churchonpurpose.org and follow us on social media via Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram as you live each day on purpose.
All right, well, those were all of our reminders for this month. We are so excited to be celebrating Black History Month this month and being intentional about incorporating opportunities for celebration in all of our services, and so keep on looking out for those. And today, of course, being the second Sunday, is our day to recognize our Kingdom Kids. They are so awesome and so phenomenal and so wonderful, and we're grateful that they are doing such a great job leading us in worship today. Y'all, look, it's people that's been in church their entire lives, literally their entire lives, 50, 60 years, that still don't know all the words to lift every voice and sing. So we appreciate y'all, and we're glad that you're learning it now, because the message of that song is one that is extremely powerful and relevant for us as Black people here in America. And so we're grateful for you. It's interesting, though, because as I was watching everything that was happening here at the beginning of worship, I was like, I done did it. I done turned my son into me. He's singing a song, then he got to go play the drums, then he got to come back up and pray. I'm just like, Lord. And doing a phenomenal job at all of them. And so we appreciate each of you for utilizing your gifts here at Church on Purpose. And we're excited that you have the space to be able to grow and to develop those. And so be sure you celebrate and encourage our young people when you see them. Next time you see them, make sure you let them know what a wonderful job they did leading us in worship today. So as we continue with worship this morning, this, of course, is a great opportunity, if you have not already, to worship the Lord with your gifts, to support the work of the kingdom by making a personal contribution to the work here at Church on Purpose. You can do so by utilizing any of the 4 methods that you see there on your screen: our church website, the Church Center app, any of your existing giving methods, as well as text to give to make a contribution to the work of the Lord here. We do our best to do what the Lord is calling us to do, and so your resources help us to continue to do that work effectively. And so we appreciate your contributions and your demonstration of trust and faith in the Lord as you utilize a little bit of what He's given to return to His work. That being said, of course, that opportunity to give is open at any and all times. And so as we continue with worship, Jada and Layla and David are going to come back to lead us in yet another song. But let's be intentional about continuing to lift our voices together, no matter where we are, on your couch, in your bed, in your car, doesn't matter. Lift your voice and sing with us as we worship the Lord.
We shall
once again, everyone. We are thankful for your presence in worship today. We are thankful for your presence in worship today. And again, so overjoyed, so blessed, so excited about the wonderful job that our young people continue to do in leading us in worship. And so we are so tremendously blessed by them, and we are grateful for your using your gifts here in the church. So gathering here this morning, we are excited because we have the opportunity to begin a new kind of mini series in our associated with our theme for this year, and this will prayerfully be both a blessing and an encouragement for you. I know it has been a challenge for me, but I'm excited about being stretched, because whenever the Lord stretches us, it's because he is preparing us for something super fantastic. So our scripture today is going to come from 2 Kings, the Old Testament book of 2 Kings, chapter 4. 2 Kings chapter 4, and today we're going to be looking at verses 1 through 7. 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 1 through 7. I'll be reading that from the English Standard Version. And beginning at verse 1, it says these words. Now the wife of one of the sons of the prophets cried to Elisha, "Your servant, your servant, my husband, is dead. And you know that your servant feared the Lord, but the creditor has come to take my 2 children to be his slaves." And Elisha said to her, "What shall I do for you? Tell me, what have you in the house?" And she said, "Your servant has nothing in the house except a jar of oil." Then he said, "Go outside, borrow vessels from all your neighbors, empty vessels and not too few. Then go in and shut the door behind yourself and your sons, and pour into all these vessels. And when one is full, set it aside." So she went from him and shut the door behind herself and her sons. And as she poured, they brought the vessels to her. When the vessels were full, she said to her son, "Bring me another vessel." And he said to her, "There is not another." Then the oil stopped flowing. She came and told the man of God, and he said, "Go, sell the oil and pay your debts, and you and your sons can live on the rest." This morning, as we continue our 2021 theme, Who Are You?, we begin a new series called Exiting the Darkness. And in this series, we are going to talk today first about how to get out of the dark. How to get out of the dark. Happy Valentine's Day. We haven't said that at any other point during worship today. So it's a good way to begin our message. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy for some, at least. Others dread this day because our social misunderstanding of love leaves them to attach their value and worth to whether they receive cards, candy, and other gifts today. Though this day is a superficial reinforcement of our society's imperfect and inaccurate representation of love, many will define themselves today by what they do or do not receive. The value of friendships will be reduced to printed paper, dying flowers, cavity-inducing confectionery, expensive dining experiences, and the like. Now, I'm not saying that anything is inherently wrong with these things or these things being utilized as expressions, but what is wrong is when we begin to embrace these things as metrics of our love or our value. That easily happens when we are in the dark about who we are. When you don't understand who you are, then you don't understand how valuable you are. And when you don't understand how valuable you are just by being who you are, then you will always seek and search externally for someone or something to give you some kind of indication of whether or not you are truly valuable. The only way to develop an inherent and internal understanding of our value is to build a real and authentic relationship with ourselves. But the only way to build a real, authentic, and meaningful relationship is through familiarity. And familiarity only comes with time. So it's interesting that we can still be in the dark about ourselves even though we are with us all the time. The problem, honestly, isn't that we don't know. The problem is that we're in the dark about what we know. And the only way to shed light on the matter is the answer to how to get out of the dark. It's time. Time is a significant component of the answer. What do I mean by that? I was recently challenged as a part of the Omaha Legacy Wealth cohort that is going on right now, facilitated by Dr. Pamela Jolly, author of The Narrow Road, Guide to Legacy Wealth. And I was challenged by Dr. Jolly as I grow to understand all of the wealth that resides within me. I was challenged to be a better steward of my time. Now, based on my narrow road ID, I need structure to succeed, or my vision and creativity will cause me to move on before finishing what I've started. So taking that into account and embracing the challenge to better steward, better manage my time, I was led to reevaluate, reassess, and restructure my schedule. because I found myself oftentimes talking about how I didn't have enough time to do all of the things that were on my plate to do. And I would use that as an excuse for why I didn't finish things that I should have finished, why I didn't do things that I should have done, and why I didn't complete things that I had adequate opportunities to complete. And do you know that in the process of that assessment, I ended up identifying 52 hours out of the 168 hours that you and I are given in a week. I identified 52 hours that I could not account for. This was 52 hours, not that I was asleep, not that I was working, not that I was at church, but 52 hours in my week that I had absolutely no plan and made no preparations for. Now, after completing that assessment and having to embrace the reality of how poorly I was stewarding my time, I have no excuse. No excuse for not being able to get the things done that I need to get done. And as a matter of fact, I took it so far that now I know the percentage of hours in my week that are spent on each activity. I know that I spend 34.7% of my week sleeping. I know the percentages now of the activities in my week so that I can be a better steward of my time. Now, as I was identifying which activities were going to be on my calendar and in my schedule, one thing became very clear, that I had to be intentional about allocating specific time, not just for everything else, but purposefully and intentionally identifying, marking out, and carving out time with God. I had to be intentional about it. And in that intentional time that I started preparing for this week, the Spirit led me to 2 Kings and the story of this widow who comes seeking the aid of the prophet Elisha. Her husband had died, which was obviously a death blow to their household provisions. And now the creditor is demanding compensation. And since she has no money or not enough money, he threatens to take her sons. Now, this is a double blow to her because, one, she obviously has no other relatives to assist her. Because the social protocol of that day was, if you had a relative, particularly a widow or an orphan, that was in need, it was your responsibility and obligation to step in and to do what you could to help alleviate that need. The formal title is a kinsman redeemer, and we hear about this usually in the story of Ruth, Naomi, and Boaz. But that was the obligation of relatives to take care of and look after one another. And so the fact that this woman is at this place where the creditor is coming and threatening to take her sons away from her, and she has to go to Elisha, the prophet, means that her support system doesn't exist. But not only is this a blow because she has no other relatives that can help her to pay her debt and maintain her children, but also for a widow, a son would have been able to provide for his mother into her old age. And so if her sons are taken away from her, her last hope at sustainability is also taken away. Because now, not only does she not have a relative to step in and to provide assistance should any other trials, calamities, or misfortune befall her, but now her sons, who obviously are too young to work right now at this point and generate income to be able to help provide for the household, her sons who are too young now but will grow into men and be able to take care of her as a widow are going to be taken away. She has a problem She's in the dark about how to resolve it. And so she goes to the prophet, and he gives her instructions and assurance that I believe you and I can embrace today. The prophet tells her to go get some stuff, bring it back to her house, close her doors, begin to pour, and then the miracle takes place. What is interesting about this story is that we learn from the beginning that God can use what's already in your house as a starting place. When she goes to Elisha and she seeks resolution to her problem, Elisha lets her know that the starting place for resolution to her problem is not in his pocket. It's not in anybody else's house. It's not anywhere else. But the starting place is already in her house. The truth of the matter is, many of us are in the dark about who we are, about who God is calling us to be, about what God is calling us to do, not because we don't already have the starting place, but because we don't provide adequate space to receive. To get out of the dark, first of all, you must prepare what you possess. You must prepare what you possess. Verse 2 of our text says, and Elisha said to her, what shall I do for you? Tell me, what have you in the house? And she said, your servant has nothing in the house except a jar of oil. Then he said, go outside, borrow vessels from all your neighbors, empty vessels, and not too few. To get out of the dark, you have to prepare what you possess. Now notice, in response to the problem, Elisha wants to know what the widow already possesses. What is it that you already have that can be a resource to solving your problem? But when the widow responds to him, she tells him that she has nothing in her house but a jar of oil. What she perceived to be nothing would prove to be everything that she needed. And for some of you, you keep stressing and worrying about a problem that you already possess the solution to. For this widow, what she had didn't look like the answer to her. She needed money, but all she had was oil. You too find yourself stressing because you need rent in 15 days, but all you have is oil. You need a psychological study done on you to find out why you are the way that you are, but all you have is oil. You need love and affection to make you feel valuable and wanted in this world, but all you got is oil. You need healing for your broken heart and wounded soul, but all you got is oil. You need freedom from destructive and self-defeating thoughts, but all you've got is oil. You need answers to questions that nobody has been able to provide resolution for, but all you've got is oil. Sometimes you feel like you need a drink, but all you got is oil. You need, but when you look around, all you've got is oil. Looking through your natural eyes, you can't see how what you have can meet the needs that exist. But here's the funny thing about oil. In the Bible, oil is used throughout as a representation of the Spirit of God or the presence of God. And too often today, believers, citizens of God's kingdom, the children of God, overlook and diminish the value of what they already possess because it doesn't look like the answer to the question that they've been asking. Elisha, knowing the power of God to do the miraculous with the minuscule, instructs the widow to borrow vessels from her neighbors and empty them all. When you're trying to get out of the darkness of who you are, the process begins by preparing what you possess. The widow had to set aside the vessels. The vessel that she had and the vessels that she borrowed from others. Pots, jars, these vessels in this time were carved out of stone and would be used for storing oil, perfume, and other precious dry and liquid goods. They were containers for valuables. This means that some of these vessels that she went to go borrow from her neighbors would have to be emptied of their current contents to be available for filling. Elisha specifically instructs her to gather not too few, because what the Lord wanted to do was going to require more than the single vessel she already had access to. What are you talking about? Here it is. If we agree that time is what's needed to build relationship and understanding, then you can agree that growing to understand who you are is going to require time with the one that made you. Too often, however, we look at our schedule the way this widow looked at her oil and determined we don't have enough time, when in reality, the 24 hours in a day and the 168 hours in a week are sufficient for the solution. We may have to set aside some vessels, set aside and dedicate some time to sitting with our Father. If the blocks we have aren't sufficient, then we might need to go to our neighbors and our associates and gather some time from them. I think Representative Maxine might say you might need to go and reclaim some of your time from people that have been wasting your time and not allowing you to maximize your time with your Heavenly Father. If the time we have dedicated to spending with our Father isn't enough, then we need to empty some time somewhere else to make room for what He wants to do. You might have to turn off your TV. You might have to turn off your phone. You might have to get up early. You might have to say no to the invitations that will take you away from your time with Him. But you need to figure out what you need to do with the vessel of time that you have, because it is the starting place to your solution. How are you preparing to receive what God wants to pour? To get out of darkness, to get out of the dark, you prepare what you possess. But when we look at verses 4 and 5, we see that after you prepare what you possess, then you pour in private. You pour in private. Verse 4 says, then go in and shut the door. These are the words of Elisha to the widow after he tells her to gather all of the vessels. He says, then go in and shut the door behind yourself and your sons and pour into all the vessels. And when one is full, set it aside. So she went from him and shut the door behind herself and her sons. And as she poured, they brought the vessels to her. get out of the dark. You prepare what you possess. And once preparation has been made, then you pour in private. Here's the deal. We want the trial. We want the difficulty. We want the obstacle. We want the struggle in private and the blessing in public. But more often than not in our lives, that is not God's modus operandi, his method of operations. More often than not, God is going to cause our struggle to be public and our blessing to be private. Contrary to popular belief, he actually does get more glory from our pressing than he does from our blessing. God is glorified more in how you go through what you go through than in your deliverance from what you've been through. But that is a challenging concept for us because we live in a social media society where we want to be able to put up and post in front of everybody else all of the wonderful things that are going on in our lives because we want them to think that we got it all together while behind the scenes we are falling to pieces. Now, I'm not saying that everybody needs to be in your business and everybody needs to know what's going on with you because that ain't the case. But the stuff that you are going through and the struggle that you are navigating is bigger than you, and the blessing in it is more than just for you. See, when we struggle in public, then when the Lord blesses us to come out of it, it magnifies the glory that he earns because people have seen how we navigated the difficulty along the way while maintaining our faith. And because they observed our struggle and they now see our success, they can see that it was nobody but God. You think about Job and all of the difficulty that he experienced. And the reason that we celebrate and highlight Job is because of his faith through his circumstances. But the only reason we celebrate him the way that we do is because we actually got to see into the struggle that he was going through, how he maintained his faith through the struggle, and how God blessed him on the backside. And so we bless God and we magnify God, and God is glorified at elevated heights because we see the depths that Job was in. We see the dedication and commitment of his faith in those depths, and then we see the elevation of God as he delivered him from them. If people don't know the struggle, then they'll never understand the significance of the blessing and comprehend just what the Lord had to do to get you out. For this widow, all of her neighbors now know that something is going on in her house. She had to go knock on all of their doors and ask for all of their empty vessels. And I'm positive that while that's going on, people are asking why and trying to understand what's going on and why she needs all of these vessels. Now, if these people are any people like the people that we know are people today, then you know that when she went into her house and closed her door with vessels that she had gathered from everybody's house all around the town. They got together and started trying to figure out what was going on. But they had to remain on the outside because the blessing, the miracle in this wasn't just for everybody. Others may contribute to your preparation, but God pours in private. Others may contribute to your preparation, but God pours in private. And he can only pour into vessels that are emptied and ready to receive. Remember, oil was and still is a valued commodity. But oil that is poured into a dirty vessel is immediately devalued. When Elisha charged her to empty the vessels, she had to clean them of the prior contents so what the Lord was going to pour wouldn't be polluted with residue. That's why when we come to worship, before we ever hear the word, we are given the opportunity to clean out our vessels, to pour out our hearts and our lives to him, so that when he pours into us through his word, what he gives us isn't polluted by what we failed to clean out. We're always wanting God to pour out your spirit, pour out your blessings, pour out your favor. But God wants us to pour out our plans, pour out our definitions, pour out our desires, pour out our fears, pour out our hurts, so that he can pour in his vision and it not be corrupted by our plans, so that he can pour out his love and it not be polluted by our fears. To get out of the darkness of who you are, it's going to require you to prepare what you possess and then require you to pour in private. God says, you pour out what you have so that I can pour into you what you don't. Now, also notice that her sons are the only ones that were permitted to be with her for the pouring. I believe that this is because you got to pour out with people that have some skin in the game. You can't just pour out with anybody. Because remember, the miracle ain't for everybody. But you got to pour out with people who got skin in the game, who are vested in you getting from God what God desires to give to you. You got to pour out with people that are blessed by you pouring out what God is pouring into you. You want a better relationship? You want better for your relationship? How much time are you spending pouring in private with the one that has skin in the game? You want better for your church? How much time are you spending pouring in private with the ones that have skin in the game? You want better for your job? How much time are you spending pouring in private with the ones that have skin in the game? You want better for your children? How much time are you spending pouring in private with the ones that have skin in the game? You want better for your life? How much time are you spending pouring in private with the ones that got skin in the game? You prepare what you possess, and then you pour in private so that the Lord can seize the opportunity to provide you with the blessing. We see this now, this is within the context of the Old Testament, but we see this in the New Testament when you read the latter chapters of the book of Luke. and you read about and you learn and understand how the church was, or how the believers, how Jesus' disciples and followers were navigating the days after his crucifixion and resurrection until the day of Pentecost. And we read that they spent that time locked away in the upper room because they were still in fear of what the religious leaders or the Romans might do to them as followers of Christ. And so they spent all that time, 50 days total, in the upper room, locked behind those doors, only going out when provisions were needed. They spent that time behind those doors praying with one another, seeking God together, pouring out their fears to him, seeking him for guidance and direction, and holding on until the promise that Jesus made them came to pass. And while they spent time preparing and pouring out in private, it was at that unexpected moment when we arrive at Acts chapter 2, that God begins to pour out into them for all that they have poured out to him. And in that moment, he pours out his spirit on them in private, and then what he has done for them in private can't be hidden in public, because what he's done is so great and wonderful. And it's the same thing in this story today. This woman, although she poured and God poured into her in private, what he did in that private moment was so amazing that there was no way it could stay private. This is because what God does is never just for the moment that you're in right now. See, to get out of the darkness, to get out of the dark about who you are, you got to prepare what you possess. You got to do an evaluation and assessment of what you have, the time that you have available to be able to spend with the Lord, knowing and understanding that the more time that you give him, the more he can pour. And then you have to pour in private. If your faith is only attached to the times that we get together, that's not a faith that he's going to be able to pour much into you for. But the more vessels, the more pots, the more time, the more slots that you give him, that was a nice rhyme, the more that you give him, the more God can pour into you. And the thing about the way that God pours is that he provides beyond the present. Verse 6 says, when the vessels were full, she said to her son, bring me another vessel. And he said to her, there is not another. Then the oil stopped flowing. So she came and told the man of God, and he said, go, sell the oil and pay your debts, and you and your sons can live on the rest. Such a simple addendum to the end of that sentence with such amazingly powerful implications. Go, sell the oil and pay your debts, and you and your sons can live on the rest. The pouring continued as long as there were available vessels to be poured into. Now, it is possible that you haven't gotten more from God than what you have because you've only given him a fraction of the time to pour into you that you need. Let's just assume that in all of her searching, this woman was able to find 25 vessels that she brought back to her house and began pouring into out of the little bit that she had. those 25 filled vessels go much further than if she had stopped at 4. Or if she had stopped at just 2. When we look at our time and how we use our time, and when we compare that to what we want to know about God and what we want to know about ourselves, are we really giving God enough vessels to do what it is he really wants to do? To pour out into our lives what he really desires to pour out? I venture to say no, and the reason that I say that is because many of us are only thinking about today. And so we think about what we want to know today. And we make the assessment that 15 minutes ought to be sufficient for me to get what I need for today. And so we give 15 minutes. And God speaks, but we don't get everything that he desires to pour out for us, because when God pours, he provides beyond the present. When the availability of the vessels ran out, so did the provision. Notice that. The determining factor for how much provision she received had nothing to do with what God was willing to give. It had everything to do with how much room she made to receive what he wanted to give. It's possibility that some of us might be struggling financially because we won't make enough room for God to pour into us everything that he wants to give. It's a possibility that some of us may still be struggling with our self-concept and our self-value and our self-worth, and understanding how meaningful and significant and wonderful we are, because we won't make the room for God to really pour into us what he thinks about us. But because she prepared many vessels, she was able to receive much. Give God 10 minutes of your day, and he'll give you something. Give him an hour, and he can pour a lot more. When your time runs out, so does the pour. She was able to take what she received while pouring in private and pay the debt that would have destroyed her life. But God didn't just provide for the need she requested. The excess made available by her obedience would provide for her needs beyond just that single moment. Brothers and sisters, while you're looking at the needs you have today, he's already factored in tomorrow, next week, and next year. If you are limited today, it is because you only gave him 3 jars to work with last year. If you want to access limitless living, it requires you to provide more jars, more vessels, more quiet time, more prayer, more meditation, more solitude, more protected and prepared time with him so he can pour and pour and pour and pour some more. Your answers are in his pour. Your identity is in his pour. Your directions are in his pour. Your calling is in his pour. Your affirmation and acceptance are in his pour. Your deliverance is in his pour. The healing of your hurt is in his pour. And so I give you the same charge today that Elisha gave the widow. Go outside, borrow vessels from all your neighbors, empty vessels and not too few. And then go in and shut the door behind yourself and your sons and pour into all these vessels. And when one is full, set it aside. Don't get stuck celebrating the jar that he has already filled, because he still has more to pour into your life. In the kingdom, our King rarely provides the solution the way that we think, because he is always taking into account his grander plan and the full scope of time. How do we get out of the dark? We get out of the dark by spending more time with the one that can shed the light. Who are you? The answer to that question is available. You have what you need to start, but you have to make the necessary preparation with what you already possess. I challenge you and encourage you to evaluate your time this week, to look at how much of your week is dedicated to the one who has the answers to give. And then when you identify the vessels, the spaces that you can receive, pour out in private. Stop expecting God to pour into you while you're already still filled with the crap of the world. Pour out to him. Scripture says that we can cast our cares upon him because he cares for us. Whatever you got on the inside, he can take it. And we know that because he already knows that it's there. So you're not telling him anything that he doesn't know. What you're doing is you are cleaning out, you're emptying out this vessel so that it can be ready to receive the oil that he desires to pour into you without polluting what he desires to pour. Pour out in private. And then watch him provide for you beyond the present. Watch him answer questions that you haven't even asked yet. Watch him provide clarity and direction for places that you didn't even know you could go. Watch him provide for you beyond just the present questions that you have. Watch him step beyond just clarifying who you are and take it to what you can do and where you'll do it and how it's going to get done and why it needs to be done. How to get out of the dark? Spend more time with the light. Scripture tells us that Jesus is the light of the world. He is the one that illuminates those things that are hidden from us. And the more time that you spend in the light, The more time you walk through this world with the light, the less time you'll spend wandering in the dark. Exiting darkness is possible and available to each and every one of us. The question is, will you demonstrate the faith to gather as many vessels as you can so that you can receive all he wants to give? Y'all know how busy I am. And if I can find 52 hours that I had not previously accounted for in my schedule, what will you find when you do an inventory of the hours that have been given to you? There's a lot of things we could do that we don't do because we say we don't have time, because we say we're tired. But the truth is, God gives us every day all of the hours, minutes, and seconds that we need to do what needs to be done. And when we learn to be better stewards of that, we will find ourselves walking in what the old song says, walking in the light, the beautiful light. And that is my desire for each of you. That you would walk in the light of Jesus Christ that illuminates those things in our lives that are dark. It brings knowledge and understanding and wisdom so that we can live our lives not in the fear of darkness, but in the boldness and the courage of walking in the light. This concludes our message for the day. And at this time, we are going to gather for a period of reflection so that we can answer the questions that you see on your screen. What stuck out to me the most from the lesson? And what am I going to do differently this week based on what I heard? If you are joining us on our website, then that reflection button will be popping up there for you to click to join us. Or if you're joining us on any of our other platforms, you can go to sun.churchonpurpose.org to join us for our reflection. We would love to be able to spend some time chopping up the message with you. And so we invite you to join us at the conclusion of this broadcast. If you've watched this today and the Spirit is speaking to you about coming out of the darkness into the light of who you are and who God made you to be, then understand that all the things that I've said in this message today only apply when you have put your faith in Jesus Christ. That's the very first step to exiting the darkness, is putting your faith, trusting Him with your life, believing Him as the Lord and Savior. Then He can pour into you His Spirit so that His Spirit can strengthen you to do everything else you need to do. So if you've been listening today and you don't have a relationship with the Lord, today is the opportunity to make that step out of the darkness into the light. If you've been walking in the light but wandered back into the darkness, and you know that your relationship isn't where it's supposed to be, and you haven't been seeking or pursuing anything that the Lord has, the opportunity exists for you today to come back out of the darkness into the light, to be reminded of what God has for you and who you are in Him. If you're watching this and you've been walking alone, you don't have to go through this journey alone. Again, when you pour out in private, you got to pour out with people that have some skin in the game. If you need somebody to pour out with you. I know some people that go by the name Church on Purpose that would love to do that. Here's the thing about being isolated. Real quick story and then I'm done. Growing up, I used to always watch the Discovery Channel. Still enjoy it. Love nature shows. Here's something I learned very early on in my life. When the hunters on the plains are looking for prey, they identify the one that is isolated from the herd. Why? Because they're easy pickings. You've been isolated from the herd for too long. And it's time for you to make the commitment to connecting with the herd so that together we can fend off the enemy and pursue everything that God has for us. So if you need to give your life to the Lord today, get things back on the right track, or if you want to partner with a church, doesn't even have to be Church on Purpose. We would love it if it was, but it doesn't have to be. Then you can drop us a message in the chat and one of our leaders will reach out to you to follow up with you to let you know what you need to do, or you can go to our website at churchonpurpose.org and you can click on that blue button that says Spiritual Decision. Fill out that form, and when we receive that, one of our leaders will reach out to you and follow up with you, one, to celebrate with you for the courageous decision that you made, but then secondly, to give you the next steps so that you can no longer walk in the darkness, but begin to walk in the light. We are grateful that you've joined us for worship today. And I pray that the Lord has poured into you something that you can take with you this week. We love you. God bless you. And we pray that you would live each day on purpose.